Hello everyone, and welcome to my review of Frieren Beyond and Beyond Journey's End, also known as Sousou no Frieren, which actually has kind of a different meaning, which is Frieren the Slayer. So I'm not sure how the naming here works. I could be getting this wrong, but it does say the original title is Sousou no Frieren, and I think that can be, it's just given a different title altogether to sort of mask a bit of the character's actual purpose and journey. But here's the thing, this was an absolutely beautiful anime that satisfied not just kind of anime that I was seeking for a while, but it also sort of satisfied the sort of the inner fan that fan I am for things like Lord of the Rings and one of those fantasy stories about elves and RPGs and these kind of different races of characters living in a world that has to take on evil, the greater evil, taking on quests and journeying and just adventuring from land to land, mostly on foot, sometimes in carriages. And the slow burn that the story takes, the pacing of it really slows you down, almost to the feeling of reading a book and just breathing in the atmosphere that is being shown. And it's one of those nostalgic feelings that I had from having watched the original Lord of the Rings. Because one of the most beautiful things about Tolkien's story is how he describes the world, right? The world building is really what the heart of that story is. And when it was brought to life by Peter Jackson, which I think was way back when I was still in school. Let me just pull that up for you. There we go, 2001. Yeah, it's such a glorious time. Peter Jackson working with Tolkien and literally bringing his book to life in one of the most beautiful fashion you can. And it's one of the things that a lot of many films have failed to do, which is bring a book literally to life without actually losing a lot of points. And I think Lord of the Rings really sort of was able to achieve that, and it was very much due to the fact that the directors and the writer really worked hand in hand to make sure that the direction of the story was exactly as per told, with the movie magic of something being on screen brought to life by a real casting of actors. And so there's a lot of thought process put into a production like this, and even the kind of technology that they use due to the lack of CGI, which is angles and positioning to make Gandalf always seem larger than the rest of the hobbits, and also the specifically crafted props to make the hobbits seem like all of the tools that they use is slightly larger than them, just to give you a sense as though they are really tiny people when they're just regular sized people wearing slightly out of proportion larger clothes. And a lot of effort that's made to make the scenes seem like they were just naturally there, but it's a beautiful film. But what really, made me enjoy Lord of the Rings back then was sort of the way the world is built and the scenery and the concepts and the slow burn of fantasy that draws you in and takes its time to tell you the story. Now, today I could watch this in a longer format as a TV series, but there's not many TV series that's able to achieve this without feeling like a complete spoiler, right? Lord of the Rings was able to achieve it because it's in a single film. It was still pretty long because I watched all the extended cuts. Trust me, we had a hell of a blast last time, spending 12 hours nearly just watching back to back Lord of the Rings, and hanging out at his friend's place, and that was kind of the good old days that I would call, that I would be talking to about with my kids. Like, back in my day, it was me sitting back to back with my friends for 12 hours watching Lord of the Rings and then playing Dota and CS:GO. But yeah, it's one of those amazing times, and really is a very huge nostalgia factor. And I haven't seen anything achieve this in the last decade or two. Or sorry, in the last decade, 2 decades was already this, right? So the last decade, I haven't really seen anything achieve it. But surprisingly, Soso no Frieren scratched that itch for me. And it was really amazing to see how beautiful the storytelling was done, how very patient the writers are with absorbing you into the world and letting you take understanding as to what these characters are, what they're doing, and how they view the world. And it's very important to build the world in such a way that you feel like you're seeing the place through the eyes of the characters so that you can actually understand each character in their own journey. Because it's no way if I tell you tomorrow, oh, it's a mage and she's not able to make magic fly out of her wand, and so you have to feel bad for her. So how do we bring you to be in touch with that? Because you clearly don't have a magic wand, and you clearly don't can't use destructive spells that can kill entire neighborhoods, right? So there must be a way to make it relatable, and it's partly to do with making you understand how the characters in the story see the world and how they perceive what's important to them. And so the characters that are built here is so well done. You know, they teach you how they grew up, why certain tools, like for example, what do you call this? Fern is holding a staff that is gifted to her by her sort of adopted father, who is a legendary priest who, together with Frieren, defeated the Demon Lord. And so being trained by him, she's able to appreciate that this thing is sort of a gift given to her, by her master, and it carries so much meaning to her than being more than just an old staff. So even as time goes on, the attachment is shown, and you can sort of understand things like that, right? Because this is the basic concept. You're given a gift by someone who's a mentor, or a parent, or a friend. Who has really taken care of you, and you have spent your entire life working with that particular tool, or having it in a corner, even if it's just a photo, even if it's just a pendant of sort, or a watch. You grow an attachment to it, and so you start to relate that she's just a girl who's been given a gift that she really appreciates, and because it means so much to her that it might come into play later, and it does, and you can really feel the meaning behind moments like that. And so everything is built really well, and everything is it takes its time to make you understand the characters. And then you have this super cool animation fight sequences that are just done beautifully well. It's gorgeous. You have this anime sort of narration going on as the spells come into play and the characters make their decisions. So you understand in a split second the amount of thought process that goes behind the scenes in the characters' heads. And this is not something that you can do in live action. You can't really have a character just go in slow motion and start talking through their head. It's kind of weird. It'll make you feel like you're watching an X-Men film where Professor X is talking to you. But instead, in anime, you can actually achieve this really well because more than often you are already sort of looking at the characters or understanding the characters from some sort of a voice acting perspective. So in a way, you always have their voice in your heads and not really on the screen in front of you. And so I feel that that kind of makes sense, at least to me. But yeah, this it really is nice to see it all play out really well. And on top of everything, Frieren herself, she's an elven mage who has, hundreds and hundreds of years of experience, and therefore she is, in a way, a really old grandmother, like a really, really old grandmother who's just timeless. And she's just journeying through the world post-war, having defeated the Demon King together with her party, and so the entire party that she used to spend time with have all passed because none of them are elves, so none of them can live as long as her. So she's part of a legendary party that has defeated the Demon Lord, and well beyond that, this story is sort of the post Demon Lord era, where she's just journeying with her friends to take on a few side quests here and there, explore towns, try to get some, I don't know, new mage examination awards and stuff like that. She takes her new what do you call this? Fern, who is sort of a student, a new student, who she undertakes because her party member, the priest, is going to pass away, and so he hands her the responsibility of taking care of his sort of stepdaughter Fern, and he believes that that will actually, you know, cause Frieren, who is like a multiple century old elven mage, to actually appreciate something that she has not really fully understood because despite the amount of time that she has lived, she doesn't really have the experience of actually raising a child, let alone a human child, whose her lifespan is a lot shorter than you, which means that they're not going to be as patient as you, because for them, time really matters. And that's kind of the interesting thing to think about is that two kids, like, just as a human example, right? The older people will always want you to do things better than them, sooner than they know you even actually can. Like they may know that certain things take time, but more than often they have a sort of persistence to rush you to make sure you succeed early on in life, because it's not because they don't think you can't do it later, it's because they won't be around to see it. And so more than often they want to make sure that you get it done so that their responsibility is over. And this is kind of what it's like to be a parent or a grandparent, to see your legacy continue and to be kind of sure of what they're going to do. But here the roles are kind of reversed, where Frieren is sort of the parent for this kid, but Frieren has all the time in the world, and so she, you have these moments where Fern is the one taking responsibility and cleaning up after Frieren, and she's sort of caring for Frieren, and she wakes her up in the morning. She's much more responsible, and she's taken the role of sort of the parent of the house because of the way Frieren behaves. Because Frieren knows she's just gonna outlive literally everything around her, and it's kind of interesting how they show that duality and dynamics between these characters. And later on, they add a male character into the story, a swordsman, and I kind of feel like he's sort of the letdown of the entire show because his introduction was pretty cool. He's sort of training to, like to practice his sword or something stark, right? Such stark. So he trains to use his sword, and then there's a dragon that he has to battle, and he's sort of shown like as this coward who's actually really really strong, but he never really grows in terms of as a character. Like I feel like his character growth was very much stunted in this series, and we don't really see him actually sort of become more mature and perhaps more stoic and less afraid of the world and become less of a point of comedy and more so a point of action. So we don't really see that because someone who, is like it feels like he's just an idiot, and I don't really like when characters who train so hard and work so hard are represented that way. Because someone with as much power as Stark should very much take on the role of being the next Himmel, who was the original swordsman hero of the story, who journeyed together with Frieren and her party. So in its core, together with the music and the atmosphere that's being created and the way the world is built around Frieren, this is a really beautiful anime with a lot of great story. I feel that Frieren really falls short in the sense where, as I said, there are certain side characters that are not just built as well as Frieren and Fern, and I think that even some of the characters from Frieren's past, who were the original, journeying hero party, which is Himmel. There's a dwarf warrior, can't really remember his name, and Heiter is the priest. Eisen is the dwarf warrior, so I believe like their story is done a little bit better. I think Eisen's story is a little bit weak. Heiter's story is pretty nice, and so is Himmel's story. Himmel's just this legendary human folklore hero that everyone knows because of just how cool and awesome he is. Probably, also gifted good looks and whatnot. So Himmel just seems to be such a great character that's easily understood by everyone universally. Um, Eisen is actually, yeah, Heiter on the other hand is also a very respectable character because he's a priest and whatnot, even though he's sort of like this easygoing priest. Eisen is the one that's least understood among the three. There's also some other cool side characters that are introduced later on, like Deadkin. I felt like Lovine was okay. Some of them are a little bit weak. But generally, the main characters in the story are Frida and Fern, who I think did a great job of just being the centerpiece of the story. Though having added Stark so early on, I felt really sad that he, like, see, Stark is in 17 episodes, but it feels like we watched him for less than 3 or 4 because his character just doesn't really develop, and it's really unfortunate to see that. More than often he's just bickering with Fern, or Fern is irritated with Fern in some way, and that's generally his story. He doesn't really have his own kind of journeying story because we do see him go through towns and actually help people out because I think he has a heart to help the local folks, and a lot of them thank him and they appreciate what he does, but they don't spend a moment to actually show why he's able to do what he can do, that he actually has a way to handle people, and he's actually nice, he's genuine, he's sweet, he's willing to sacrifice himself to save his party. We rarely see that. There were not very many good moments for him. Like this is the hero Himmel back in the day when he was younger and alive. But later on, we only see him towards his dying days, and Frieren hasn't aged a day because of her elven, what do you call this, race. Overall, I highly recommend Sousou no Frieren to those of you who are looking for an anime and also an edge to a beautiful fantasy story that's a slow burn, similar to the concept of Lord of the Rings. Though I don't think I'm going to rate it as high as a 9. It definitely isn't the greatest of the animes that I've watched. I probably give it a 7, if anything. Um, Reason being because as beautiful as it is with all the music and whatnot, I feel, as I said, a lot of the characters were sort of a letdown in this story. There's not enough character building involved for the overall set of people they've introduced. There's a lot of imbalance in the way they introduce some of the villains as well and some of the side characters. Some of them are just like, okay, so there's this evil girl. She's like an evil mage. She has this ability to stun people when she looks at them. But you don't really know what she's done in the past. Like the story is full of flashbacks for Frieren, but not so much for the other characters. Suddenly you get thrown one random flashback for one character because they want to make you feel bad for that person. But then the rest of them are like, okay, so randomly you have like 6 characters introduced, one gets a backstory, one gets a flashback. It's just so weird that there's no real, as I said, balance between the characters. But the core story, especially the early parts, I think the first 5 episodes, even 6 episodes, were really, really good. And I think after that, it sort of starts to break away and not really know what it's trying to achieve. And then there are these moments where it comes back to Frierin's story with the traveling party that she was with before she took on the Demon King. And I think those were still the better parts of the story. Though I really wish the series had, like the initial series had ended with them actually showcasing the kind of battles that she had with the what do you call this Demon King. Probably that's something that they'll be building towards or coming up with very soon. But it's not something that I've had a chance to witness just yet, so I'll hold my comments until those parts come out. But for now, it's a 7 out of 10 for me. It's a really, really good show. I absolutely love it. I highly recommend it to everyone and anyone who wants to look for an, a new cool looking anime to check out. Other than that, I do think that you know you everyone can take a lesson from this, and not just creators of anime. I think even live action story building can always understand that this Frieren Beyond Journey's End, or Sousou no Frieren, which actually stands for Frieren the Slayer, is able to achieve what modern Lord of the Rings is not able to. So if I were to type Lord of the Rings, we have the Fellowship, which for some reason is not. Oh, there we go. Fellowship, Return of the King, Two Towers, the original trilogy, which was amazing, came one year after the other, which was great. And then almost 20 years later, you get Rings of Power, which is absolute dog shit compared to these three. This is dog shit. Like this. Let me just give this. Yeah, okay, I rated it 2. I was going to say I'm going to give it 2, but yeah, I already rated it 2. So excellent, right? The original trilogy was absolutely amazing. Probably 8, 9, 10, or something like that, I would have rated. So I cannot compare Frieren to the likes of these three, so I cannot rate Frieren any higher than 7. Because you must understand that these three are just straight up better, which is why Frieren sits in this comfortable position. You might be thinking, oh, but this is an anime and it's a TV series, and the other ones are movies. I get it, I get it. I'm just rating it in general as what I normally would, right? Just hold your horses. But yeah, so I feel that stories and showrunners of today and modern Hollywood and whatever bullshit should really take a lesson from not just 20 years ago, but even just today, because people are still able to come up with beautiful stories like Frieren, and it's really nice. Like this in live action would have been also really beautiful, really amazing. Though, as I said, the monologues might have been a very difficult thing to replicate because that's a very anime sort of exclusive thing, but I'm sure someone will be able to figure it out how to do the slow motion anime fights, like some Zack Snyder slow motion as the dialogues roll in the the monologues roll in from the characters. Yeah, it's something that they could probably figure it out. But man, this was really fun. This was really amazing. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. I hope see you guys in the next one. And if I do find more cool stuff like this, I will bring it up with you guys. But I'm sure most of you know this. Freelance's been around for a while. I just completed it because I only got the time to do so now. But yeah, it's been amazing and really enjoyed it. See you guys. Take care.